In today's video, we're going to automate the accumulation, manipulation, distribution strategy known as AMD. Without wasting any time, let's get straight into it. So first, we want to click on the IDE icon. Then we click New, Expert Advisor from Template, Next. I will call mine AMD strategy, but obviously you can name yours whatever you want. When you've done that, click Next, Next and Finish. Now I just need to clean up the template. I like to remove all these grey lines, they're just comments, and then I also like to adjust my curly brackets. Okay, so now that that's done, first we include the standard MQL5 trade library. We'll need this so we can place, modify and close trades later in the EA. Next, we create a trade object called T. This object will handle all of our buy and sell operations. Now let's move on to the inputs. We'll start by calculating the Asian range, which is our accumulation phase. And first we will create a group in the inputs so that we keep all of the Asian range settings organized. Now we will define when the Asian session starts. We want it to start at midnight server time. So we set the start hour to 0. We also include minutes for precision, which in this case is also 0. Next, we define when the Asian session ends. Here we're saying the range should finish at 8 AM server time. So at this point, we've defined the Asian range to run from midnight until 8 AM. Now we decide which time frame we'll use to calculate the range. We will use the M15 time frame as it gives us a good balance between accuracy and noise. And finally, we define the minimum size of the Asian range. Here we are saying the range must be at least 2 pips to be considered valid. Now let's move on to the signal time frame inputs. This is where we define how trade signals are detected after the Asian range is formed. First, we create a new input group. This will hold all settings related to signal generation. Now we choose the time frame used to evaluate our trade signals. We'll use the M15 time frame, which keeps everything consistent with how the range is built. Next, we define a small pip buffer. This is used when checking if price is truly inside the range rather than exactly on the high or low. In this case, we'll use 0.1 pips as a tolerance. Now let's move on to risk management and stop loss settings. This is where we control how much we risk per trade and how our stop loss is calculated. So first we create a new input group. This will keep all the risk and stop loss related settings together. Now we define how much of the account we want to risk per trade. This value is a percentage of the account balance, and here we are risking 1% per trade. Next, we define a buffer for the stop loss. Stop loss will be placed beyond the current day's high or low, and this value adds an extra 11.5 pips to that level. Now let's move on to the take profit modes. This section controls how the take profit is calculated for each trade. Same as before, we create a new input group for all the take profit related settings. So first we need to define an enumeration. This gives us different take profit modes that we can switch between in the settings. The first option is R multiple based on take profit, for example 1R, 2R. And the second option is targeting the opposite side of the Asian range. So here we select which take profit mode the EA will use. By default, we'll use the opposite range method. This value is only used when the R multiple mode is selected. It defines how many times the stop loss distance we want to target, and in this case we're targeting 5R. This sets a small buffer when targeting the opposite side of the range, and it keeps the take profit slightly inside the high or the low of the box. Now let's define the trading window. So this controls when the EA is allowed to place trades during the day. We create the group. Now we define the hour when trading is allowed to start. In this case, trading will begin at 9 AM server time. And now we define the hour when trading must stop. So here we're saying that trading is only allowed up until 4 p.m. server time. Now we create a limit to only allow the EA to take one trade per day. And once a trade is taken, no more trades will be allowed for that day. Now we'll create a master switch. If this is set to false, then the EA will not place any trades at all. Now we'll add the daily close protection. This is where we force positions to close at a specific time. So we need a simple on and off switch for this feature. If this is true, the EA will automatically close trades at the cutoff time. Next, we define the exact time for the daily close. So here we set the close hour to 22, which is 10 p.m. server time. Now we'll also set the minutes so the time can be exact. So this now makes the daily close time 10 o'clock. And now we'll just add some extra settings. These don't affect the core logic, but they control behavior and visuals. So first we'll create the group to hold all the extra settings. We'll call it MISC. Now we decide whether the EA should draw the visuals on the chart. If this is true, the EA will draw the Asian box and the trade markers. If it is not true, then it won't. Next, we decide whether price must be inside the box in real time before a trade is allowed. So if this is enabled or true, the EA will confirm live price is inside the range before entering the position. And finally, we need to assign a magic number to the CA. This uniquely identifies trades placed by the CA, so it doesn't interfere with other strategies. For example, if you're running multiple EAs on the same account, you'll be able to track what trades came from this EA by checking for the magic number. So now we're going to define some global variables. These will store symbol data and session state that we will reuse throughout the EA. First, we need variables to store pricing and volume information for the symbol. So here we'll store the symbol point size, pip value, tick size, and the minimum, maximum, and step size for the volume. Next, we need variables to track time and session state. These will track the last process bar, the current box day, the day a trade was taken, and the start and end times of the Asian box. Next, we need to create some variables to store the high and low of the Asian range. These will hold the high and low prices of the accumulation range. Now we're going to create a state machine. This lets the EA remember what stage of the setup it's currently in. So first we define the different states that we can actually be in. We want 4 states. So none means no setup yet. Armed sell means that we're waiting for a sell entry. Armed buy means we're waiting for a buy entry. And done means that we're finished for the day. So armed sell will be when price has gone above the range and now we're waiting for it to come back into the sell, and the buy is just the reverse. So once we've gone below the range and now we're waiting for it to close inside so we can enter a buy. And then done means that we've already had the trade for today, so basically don't take no more. And we want to set the default state for when the EA starts, and this will start in the non-state and the EA will move through the states as the conditions are met. Okay, so now we'll create a helper function to detect a new candle. We only want to run our main logic once per new bar, not on every tick. So we start a function called new bar that returns true when a new candle forms. Now we create an array to hold the most recent candles. Next, we copy the latest 2 candles from our signal time frame. So if we can't get at least 2 candles, we return false and we do nothing. Now we check if the time of the current candle is different from the last one we processed. If it is different, that means a new bar has started, so we store this bar time. And now we return true because we have a new candle. If the time has not changed, then it's not a new bar, so we return false. And then we close the function. Now we'll add a few helper functions that handle day timing, copying candles, checking the trading window, and calculating the cutoff time. So first we'll need a function that takes any time and gives us the start of the day at midnight. So we start a function called day 0, which returns a date time. Now we create a date time struct so that we can break the time into year, month, and day. Next, we convert the date time into that struct, and we rebuild the same date, but we force the time to midnight. Next, we need a helper that copies a range of candles between 2 times. So we start a function called copyRange that returns how many candles were copied. First, we clear the output array, so we're always working with fresh data. And then we add a safety check. If the end time is not after the start time, we push the end time forward slightly. And now we copy the candles for that symbol, time frame, and time range. And we close the function. Now we need a function that checks if we're inside our allowed trading hours. So we start a function called timeInWindow that returns true when trading is allowed. First, we create a datetime struct for the input time. Now we convert the datetime into the struct so that we can read the hour and minute. And then we return a true or false based on the allowed window. We only allow trading after the start hour and before the end hour. Finally, we need a helper that calculates the daily cutoff time for the current box day. So we start a function called cutoff for box day. Now we'll return the box day midnight time plus the close hour and the minute converted into seconds. So now we're going to draw the Asian box visuals on the chart. So when the range is calculated, we can actually see it. So first we start with a function called drawBox, and then we add a quick safety check. If visuals are disabled from the inputs or the high and low is not valid, then we stop immediately. Next, before we draw anything new, we delete any old objects from a previous day. And now we create the main rectangle that represents the Asian range. Next, we push the rectangle to the background so it doesn't block the candles. And now we set the color of the box so it stands out clearly. We then calculate the cutoff time for this day because we want our lines to extend to that cutoff. And then we draw a horizontal line from the start of the box to the cutoff at the high of the range. And then we set the color of that high line. And then we make sure that it does not ray out forever. Now we want to do the same thing for the low of the range. Now we draw a vertical line as the cutoff time, so it's obvious where the session ends. We set the color of that cutoff line, and we set the style to dotted so it's visible but not too aggressive. Now we want to build a function that keeps the session drawings updated and also removes them when the session is finished. So to do that, we start with a function called update session graphics. First, if the visuals are turned off, then we don't want to do anything at all. But if they're turned on, we'll store the object names in constants so we don't repeat strings everywhere. This is the name of the main rectangle box. This is the name of the high horizontal line. This is the name of the low horizontal line. And this is the name of the cutoff vertical line. Now we calculate the cutoff time for this box day, and we also store the current server time. Now we update the endpoint of the high line, but only if the object exists. Next, we do the same thing for the low line. And now we update the vertical cutoff line to make sure it stays at the correct time. And now we need to check if there's currently an open position for this symbol and magic number. So first we create a flag and we set it to false. Next, we loop through all open positions. And now we check each position, we select it by ticket, confirm the symbol matches and confirm the magic number matches. If we find one, we set has open to true and we break out of the loop. Now we want to know if we've traded today. So we now define a condition to remove the drawings early. That means we already traded today and we no longer have an open position. Next, we decide when to delete the drawings. So we remove them if the current time is past the cutoff or if we've removed them early. So first we'll delete the high line. Then we delete the low line, then the cutoff vertical line, and then finally we delete the main box rectangle. And then we close the if block and the function. Now we're going to build the function that calculates the Asian box for the correct day. It stores the high and the low and then draws it. So first we grab the current server time. Now we convert that time into the start of today at midnight. Next we calculate today's Asian start time by adding the start hour and minutes and seconds. Now we'll calculate today's Asian end time in the same way. So now we need to decide which day's box we're working with. If the current time is already past today's Asian end, then we use today, otherwise we'll use yesterday. If we've already built the box for this day, we'll stop here. And now we store this day as the active box day and we reset the traded day and state. Next, we calculate the actual start time for this box. And now we calculate the actual end time for this box day. Now we're going to copy all candles inside that time range on the box time frame. So first we create an array and then we copy the data and store how many candles we got. At the same time, we reset the high and low. If we didn't get any candles back, then we stop here. And now we initialize the high and low using the first candle. Next, we loop through every candle in that range and we update the high and low. If the candle's high is higher than our stored high, we update the high, and if the candle's low is lower than the stored low, then we update the low, and then we close the loop. Next, we validate the size of the box, so if the range is smaller than our minimum range in pips, we clear it and we stop. And now that we've built a valid box, we draw it. And straight after that, we update the session graphics so the lines in the cutoff are positioned correctly on the chart, and then we close the function. Now we're going to add a helper that checks whether the CA currently has an open position. So we start a function called noPos that returns true when there are no open trades for the CA. So we loop through all open positions, starting from the last one. And for each position, we select it by its ticket and we check that the symbol matches the current chart and that the magic number matches the CA. If we do find any matching position, then we immediately return false because we do have an open trade. If we finish the loop without finding anything, that means there are no open positions for the CA, and then we close the function. Next, we're going to add a helper that forces the lot size to respect the broker limits. So we start a function called clamp that takes a raw lot size and returns a valid one. First, we round the lot size down to the nearest allowed volume step. And we make sure the value stays within the broker's minimum and maximum volume limits. And that's it, we return a lot size that the broker will actually accept. Now we're going to add a helper that forces our stop loss to respect the broker's minimum stop distance. So we start a function called ensure stops level. It takes a buy or a sell flag, and it also takes the stop loss by reference so we can adjust it. First, we read the broker's stop level, which is the minimum allowed distance in points. And if the broker doesn't enforce a stops level, then we just stop here. Next, we convert that stops level into an actual price distance. And we grab the current price we'll compare it against. If it's a buy, we'll use the bid, and if it's a sell, we'll use the ask. So we'll handle the buy case first. If it's a buy, we check if the stop loss is too close to price. If the distance from price to stop loss is smaller than the minimum, we push the stop loss further away. If it's a sell, then if the stop loss is too close on the sell, we push it above the price by the minimum distance. Now we're going to add a helper that calculates the day's high and low up to a specific point in time. So we start a function called day high low. It takes a time to calculate up to, and it outputs the high and low by reference. So first we convert that time into the start of the same day at midnight, and we copy all candles from the start of the day up to that time on the signal time frame. Next we handle the safety case. So if we didn't get any candles back, we just set both values to the current price and stop. Now that we know that we have data, we initialize the high and low from the first candle. And then we loop through all candles and update the high and low as we go. If this candle's high is higher than our stored high, we update the high. And if it's lower, if this candle's low is lower than our stored low, we update the low. Alright, so now we're going to build the function that actually places the trade. This will handle the checks, stop loss, take profit, lot sizing, and then send the order. So we start a function called place. It takes a buy flag, and it also takes the stop loss level we calculated from the day high or low. First, we make sure that trading is enabled, and we also make sure that we don't already have an open position. If trading is disabled, or we do already have an open position, we mark the state as done and we exit. Next, we make sure that we're inside the allowed trading hours. So if we're outside of the trading window, we also mark done and exit. And if we've enabled the live inside check in the imports, we only allow entries when the current price is inside the box. Then we grab the current ask and bid. And we convert our inside buffer from pips into price distance. Now if this is a buy, we confirm the ask is inside the box with a buffer. And if it's a sell, we confirm the bid is inside the box with a buffer. Next, we take the stop loss passed into the function and we adjust it if the broker requires a minimum distance. Now we decide the entry price we're using, and for a buy we use the ask, for a sell we use the bid. Next, we calculate the stop loss distance from entry to stop loss. If that stop distance is invalid, then we stop immediately. We calculate the take profit. So first we initialize it to the entry price, and if the TP modes are multiple, we calculate the TP as multiples of the stop size. So for a buy, we add the multiple times the stop distance. and for a cell which subtracts the multiple by the stop distance. If we're not using our multiple, then we're using the opposite side of the box or the range. So first we convert the opposite buffer from pips into price distance. For a buy, we target near the high of the box minus the buffer. And for a sell, we target near the low of the box plus the buffer. Next, we calculate how much money we want to risk on this trade. So we convert that risk amount into lots based on stop size and symbol tick data. And then we clamp it into broker limits. If the calculated lots are below the minimum volume, then we don't trade. Now we set the magic number on our trade object and we place the order. If it's a buy, we send a buy, otherwise we send a sell. Now if the trade was placed successfully and one trade per day is enabled, we'll mark today as traded. If the visuals are enabled, we'll draw an arrow on the chart at the point of entry and we choose a name based on buy or sell. Then create the arrow at the current time and entry price. And we set its color. And finally, once we've attempted the trade, we mark the state as done. Okay, so now we're going to build the signals function. This is where we detect the AMD setup and decide when to arm and when to enter. So first we make sure that we actually have a valid box. So if the high and low are not valid, we do nothing. Next, if one trade per day is enabled and we already traded this box, then we stop. Now we also make sure we're inside the trading window before we do any signal checks. Next, we need the most recent closed candle on the signal time frame. So we copy candle starting from shift 1, which is the last completed bar. If we didn't get a candle data back, then we stop. Next, we store the values we care about from that candle. We take its high, low, and close. And we convert our inside buffer from pips into price distance. Now we start the state logic. First, if we're currently in the non-state, then we are waiting for the initial displacement outside the box. If the candle low is above the box high, that means price displayed upward, so we arm a sell. Otherwise, if the candle is below the low of the box, then price displaced downward, so we arm it with a buy. Next, if we're armed for a sell, we're waiting for price to come back inside of the box. So if the candle closes inside the range, we place the sell. And we check that the close is above the low plus buffer and below the high minus the buffer. We calculate the day's high and the low up to this candle time. And we build the sell stop loss using the day high plus our buffer. Now we place the sell, passing false for sell and passing in the stop loss. Next, if we're armed for a buy, we do the same thing. We wait for price to close back inside the box and we place the buy. We check that the close is inside the box using the same buffers, and we calculate the day's high and low up to this candle time. Now we build the buy stop loss using the day low minus our buffer. And then we place the buy, passing true for buy and passing in the stop loss. So now we're going to add a helper that decides when a position should be forced closed based on our daily close settings. So we start a function called time to close. It takes the trade entry time and the current time and returns true when we should close. First, if daily close is disabled, we never force close anything. Next, we convert both times to their day start at midnight so we can compare if we're still on the same day or not. Now we break the current time into hours and minutes so we can compare the cutoff time. And then we build a condition for closing on the same day. So if we're still on the entry day and the current time is past the cutoff, it becomes true. And then we build another condition for closing on the next day. So if today is later than the entry day, we also want to close. And then finally we return true if either condition is true. So now we're going to enforce that daily close rule by looping through positions and closing anything that hits the cutoff. So we start a function called enforce daily close. First, we loop through all open positions. Now we grab the ticket for this position. Next, we try to select the position by that ticket. If we can't select it, then we skip it. Now we make sure the position is on the current chart symbol. If it's not, then we skip it. And next we make sure the position belongs to this EA by checking the magic number. If it doesn't match, then we skip it. This means that it won't close any trades from your other EA at their close time. So now we read the entry time of the position. We check if this position should be closed right now. If time to close returns true, then we close it. And we set the magic number on the trade object. And then we close the position by ticket. Now we'll initialize all the symbol specific values the EA needs before it starts running. So we start in the onInit function. This runs once when the EA is loaded. We will store the symbol's point size. Next, we calculate what 1 pip means for this symbol. So if the symbol uses 3 or 5 digits, 1 pip is 10 points, otherwise it's 1. Then we store the tick value for the symbol. We store the tick size. We read the broker's minimum allowed volume. And we read the maximum allowed volume. We read the volume step, which tells us how lots must be incremented. And now that all symbol data is ready, we build the agent box immediately. And finally, we tell MetaTrader that initialization was successful. Now we'll tie everything together in the onTick. This is where the EA runs in real time. So in the onTick function, the first thing we do is check if a new candle has formed. So only when a new bar forms, we rebuild the box and evaluate signals. This recalculates the Asian box if needed, and this checks for the AMD setups and possible entries. Outside of the new bar logic, we keep the visuals updated on every tick. Next, we enforce the daily close rules in case any position needs to be closed. And that is pretty much it. So now we can compile and we can go back over to MetaTrader 5. So back in MT5, we click View, Strategy Tester, we'll select the file that we just created. We will test the last year worth of data. We won't use visual mode as it will be longer. Start hour at midnight until 8 AM. The start hour for trading is 9 until 4. Using TP at opposite side of the range, and we're risking 1%. So the graph's looking pretty good so far. I'm quite happy with that. We made around 10% with 100% history quality, which is as accurate as you're going to get. Profit factor of 1.26, which is very good. With 5.75% max drawdown, we have over 58% win rate, which is very good. So yeah, pretty much happy with that. Yeah, there's not really much else to say. If you would like to learn how to build your own custom MQL4, MQL5 EAs, indicators, etc., then feel free to come over to my website. I'll leave the link in the description, but there you can find an introduction to MQL5 programming course. So in the course you'll learn MQL5 and you will learn how to build your first profitable EA. There is 8 step-by-step video lessons. You get 2 bonus lessons at the end, which include a second EA, which is a profitable Bitcoin EA. There is no prior coding experience needed, and you will learn how to build real automated strategies from scratch. So the price is currently £99 for lifetime access, and you have lifetime access to me. And also I have just built a EA for gold called the Market Structure Execution EA, which is a state-driven execution engine built specifically for gold on the M15 timeframe. It is performing exceptionally well. I am offering a 7-day free trial, so if you come to this site, then you will be able to request your trial via Telegram. So you just contact me and I will provide you with a 7-day license to use this EA. It doesn't have to just be a demo account, you can use it on your live account. It's completely up to you. You get full access for 7 days, well 7 trading days, so it doesn't count the weekends. Yeah, that's pretty much it. As I said, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.